Welcome to the Public Safety Building Committee Update, Part 1. Today I am joined by our fire and police chiefs to ask a few important questions about the upcoming building project and to help people understand a little bit better on how we got to where we are and what we'll be doing going forward. So to start, I'm going to have our chiefs introduce themselves. Chief?
Thanks, Janice. Good morning. My name is Paul Parisi. It's my pleasure and privilege to serve as the fire chief here in Ipswich.
Thank you. And Chief?
Thank you, Janice. Paul Nickus. I've been the chief here in Ipswich now for 14 years. I grew up in town, so I have a long history with this project.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, thank you both for joining us. So I'm going to ask you each a series of questions today. You'll both get about the same questions, one from the fire perspective and one from the police perspective, about the project, how it benefits your teams as well as the community, and some of the questions that the taxpayers have been putting forth.
Sure.
So who'd like to start with the first question?
Sure.
Okay. Okay, we will start with fire. So let's start off with, why is this project important to the fire department?
Thanks, Janice. It's a great question, and as the chief alluded to, it seems as if the town has been looking at this for a number of years. The current fire facility that we have at 55 Central Street is, I don't think there's any question that it's outlived its useful life.
Okay.
It was built in 1908. It was built literally for horses and for steam engines, and it is not built for what we would consider to be a modern fire protection facility to service the community as it was. So it's important on a number of levels. It's important for the employees, for our members, the folks that I serve with, to be able to deliver fire and emergency services to the community. Currently we're living in an area or in a building that has limited restrooms, limited room for storage. The apparatus literally, when it comes out of the bays, is clearing the arches of the doors by an inch on each side. There are, if you've seen the video of the interior of the building, there is no room to open up the hatches to load hose. The basement of the building is full of lally columns, and it's just not a very good condition or environment for our firefighters to operate out of. So it's really critically important that we update the facility, and now is a great time to do it.
Got it. Certainly a beautiful building.
Without, undoubtedly.
But maybe not for this particular purpose anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the building is gorgeous, and I'm a big history buff. I love old buildings, and I feel fortunate to be able to have said I worked in that building.
Yeah.
But it's time to move on and repurpose that for something.
Great, great. Thank you. And how about for the police department?
So
Why is this project important?
Sure. So to echo Chief Parisi's comments, the police station's woefully inadequate for a 21st century police force and public safety force. It was never designed as a police station. Most people know it was a wire storage facility for the electric light department back in the 50s and 60s, and then it was converted to office space for the police department in 1986 or around there. So the layout internally does not serve the officers that work within the building, nor does it serve the general public in any meaningful way. There's very little space for private and confidential discussions for the public to have with police officers. So the new design of the building is there to flow correctly for current public safety operations. And we can get into that a little later, but Ipswich has never built the police station, to be honest with you. We were always either in the old town hall
Okay.
or then the current building. Unlike the fire station, there's not a lot of historical value to this building. It's outlived its life. It's starting to fail on physically in numerous areas, and to serve the public better, we need better facilities.
Got it.
Thank you.
Not as exciting as the horses, but
No, we did
a
not
lot
have
of
the
wire
horses.
management.
That's not it. Yeah,
But-
but we did store wires.
So there you go.
All the electrical wires.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is interesting. So there's been a lot of discussion about the location, the new location. We'll talk in part 2 of this, about how we got to that location. But I'd love to hear from both of your perspectives, why that location and how it serves your groups. So we'll start over here first. I want to be fair.
So for by its nature, police forces are a roving force. So our location in respect to response times is not really that critical. What is critical is that we be on a main road, which Linebrook Road is, and close to the immediate downtown area so that people can find us in an emergency. They can come and do business. We're always open 24 hours. So it's advantageous to be able to just either, if you're in the downtown area, to walk to the station or to drive on a main road and get there quickly and easily.
Okay. And for the fire department?
Yeah, so Janice, for the fire department, it's critically important that we are centrally located. So we only have one staffed fire station in the town of Ipswich,
Yeah.
and Ipswich, it's really geographically long, and
Yes.
and because we have these fingers that go out down to the Cranes Beach, out to the Neck, out to Linebrook, it takes a long time to get to some of these outer areas. So since we only have one staffed firehouse, we have to have it centrally located. We do have a national standard that we aim to fulfill, and that is responding to 90% of our responses within 4 or fewer minutes. Now that's a
Okay.
pretty tough thing to do
Sure is.
here in this community because we are so geographically large, but nevertheless, it points to why it's so important that we be in the middle of where the majority of calls are, and that is the downtown area, High Street, Topsfield Road. That area is where the calls are, so that's where we need to be. And as Chief Nick has talked about, being on a main road is important for us as well. We want to be able to access a major thoroughfare immediately so that we can begin to traverse where we're going to, and obviously Linebrook Road provides that for us. So being there is a good spot for us, and when we look at where we're coming from on Central Street, we're about 0.8 of a mile shifted slightly. So
Yeah.
obviously, as we shift our posture to there, it's going to slightly impact response times. But for where it decreases slightly, it'll increase slightly somewhere else. But generally speaking, it's a wash.
Great. So staying on the topic of location, there's been 2 pretty strong threads of conversation throughout the community. The first being the railroad crossing, and the second being the residential area. I'm going to hold on the railroad crossing for now, but I want to talk a little bit about putting a public safety facility in a residential area. So unlike the police department, which is very similarly situated right now, right?
Yes.
You have residential neighbors across the street.
Most of which are
and really
historic homes.
Right, in both
All
sides.
of which are historic homes.
But this is new for the fire department, to be out of a fully commercial area. So talk to me a little bit about how your groups integrate with the community in this new facility and become part of the neighborhood.
Well, I would say that, most of my officers, as well as most of the firefighters, are, from Ipswich.
That's
So
true.
they know their neighbors. So this just gives us a chance to meet new neighbors. That's the way I look at it. And offer the community and the neighborhood, safety, security, knowing there's always somebody around, and we intend to be great neighbors. You know, this is our town.
Yeah.
You know, we're here, we're part of the community. We're not, you know, some entity coming in from outside, some corporation. You know, these are your police officers and firefighters. These are your people.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, Chief. And you know, if I may, the last community that I worked in and retired as chief from, we had a similar issue where we relocated from one place in the community to another, and you know, we had neighbors that had concerns about us moving into the neighborhood, if you will. And it wasn't long after we moved in that they came to us and said, "Boy, were we wrong? You know, we're
nice.
so happy that you're here." And in fact, the neighborhood that we left was so disappointed that we left. You know, so I mean, I couldn't agree with Chief Nickus more. We are looking. We want to be a part of the fabric of the community. We want to be good neighbors. I know that we will be. You know, where we are currently, we have neighbors on Manning Street. We have neighbors across.
true.
There's apartments across the street from where we are.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, we have the elementary school right next door. You know,
A very
so-
important neighbor, yes.
Yeah, so I know the kids will be disappointed
Yeah.
because they won't see us out anymore. And
Yeah.
certainly we have kids that literally, kids and parents that traverse through our parking lot on a daily basis, twice a
Right.
day.
Right.
But I know that we will integrate into that neighborhood just fine.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so let's touch that third rail of the railroad crossings. We are blessed in town to have a commuter rail.
Yes.
But that also means that we have a lot of train tracks.
Right. So I'll just start quickly and say we have 5 railroad crossings in Ipswich, all in the downtown area. For the police, we really don't have an issue with it. There's been times when we may run into a train crossing, but these are commuter rails. They're not freight trains that are 45 minutes long.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, you're talking 30 seconds to 35 seconds at the Topsfield Road crossing. And each a little faster, some of the other ones, because they're not slowing down for the stop. So I think Topsfield Road's actually the longest crossing. But for us, it's not an impact at all, because as I said, we're mobile all the time, and we could be anywhere, so it's sort of irrelevant for law enforcement. But I know the chief has opinions
Yeah.
on this.
Yeah, I mean, we're impacted by the railroad crossing now. Anytime we come out of Central Street and we're going to go out Topsfield Road,
Yeah.
or even if we're going to Washington Street, or we're going out Linebrook Road, anywhere that we're going on that side of town, we're impacted by the railroad crossing. And, you know, it's just a fact of how we deal with responses. We do get minor delays by the railroad crossing on a regular basis. So whether we're going from our existing location today to a response, or whether we're coming from our new location on Linebrook Road going to response, it's part of what we deal with in Ipswich with railroad crossings. It's just part of what we deal with.
Thank you. Okay. So one of the, really the hallmarks of this project are that we are going to be bringing the two groups together into one facility. So taking you from it's probably about a half mile apart into one. Talk to me a little bit about what that does for the community. How does combining the two groups into one facility better serve the community?
First of all, I think, you know, it makes all of public safety under one roof. So anything that somebody may need from that, whether it be burning permits, speaking with an officer, it's all basically, you know, one-stop shopping. We're always there. Fire gains a 24-hour dispatcher
Okay.
that will have the building open at all times. They currently, and I think the chief can speak to this, they don't have that ability at the moment for someone to come to the station at 3 in the morning. We do. We're always open. So I think that adds to it, as well as, which again, a lot of the firefighters and police officers, they're from town or have been together now for years, if not decades, and they know each other. There's not an animosity that, people hear the rumors about in other municipalities. We're lucky in town that the professionalism of both the officers and the firefighters really comes through.
Great.
And I think they can feed off each other to service the town even better going forward.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. We have such a great relationship between police and fire in this community, and it's a pleasure to come in. Remember, I'm coming in as an outsider.
Right.
I didn't grow up here. I don't have history, but I see the firefighters and the police officers both on the street as well as our command staff. We really operate well together, and I'm so pleased to be part of that. I feel fortunate to be part of that. But operationally, what it's going to do is having dispatch with us is going to be a game changer for us, because being able to have the dispatcher and be able to actually talk to the dispatcher face to face, to be able to come back from a call and actually go in and see the dispatcher is a game changer for us. Having a 24/7 person to be able to answer the door for us. Right now, if somebody comes to the door and we're out in a call, they're ringing the doorbell, they're waiting, they can't get in because the facility is typically locked. It's public, as far as a customer service perspective, it's not that good. In this building, this new facility, it will be welcoming to the public. They'll be able to come in, they'll be able to be greeted by a dispatcher 24/7. And what we didn't talk about was, the public accessibility of this building is going to be so much better than what we currently have in either of our facilities, and we might talk about that in a little bit. But then there's the economy of scale too, Janice. And I don't know if that's something we want to talk about later, but we can talk about it now.
No, now's good.
The fact that we're going to share a training room and a community room is fantastic. We're going to share a conference room. We're going to have a physical fitness room that both police and fire will work together on, and perhaps even work at the same time in that room, and challenge each other and build up that esprit de corps and that camaraderie. Because when our folks are out on the street, they're dealing with issues on the street, and to be able to do that in the gym is pretty cool, to be able to think that that's something that we can do. Having the EOC together, if having them come over to have a training so that we can talk in terms of whether it's some sort of active shooter training, or if we're talking about some emergency medical services training. All of these things, it's going to create a synergy that we don't have currently because we're in separate facilities.
Right.
And you can even, just for nor'easters that are so common and getting more common, unfortunately, with the changing weather patterns and dealing with these major storms, we're in the same building now, or going forward. It allows us to actually design and train and prepare for these events as a single unit and not have to, drive around to see each other. So I think that's also critical.
Yeah.
Well, it's right there in the title, right? It becomes all of
Public safety,
Right.
not just police, not just fire.
Right. So on that note, how does the ambulance service fit in?
Well, as you know, currently we have a contracted service. It's Action EMS. How that looks in the future is certainly a matter of public policy, and it's driven by the town manager, the select board. But if we were to explore the possibility of having providing EMS as either a third service or as a fire-based service, we have room for that. We've made sure that this facility will be large enough for the expansion of things such as delivering emergency medical services. And if we end up having an ambulance as part of municipal government as opposed to a third service, we have room for that.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Flexibility above all else, right?
Sure.
Is there anything that either group loses by going into a consolidated space?
I'd be hard pressed to come up with an answer. To be honest with you.
I mean, I think that I think that there may be those who say, well, if you put all your eggs in one basket, you know, you may be, you know, that could be seen as a threat.
Okay.
I think that the positives far outweigh
Sure.
the negatives on that,
Yeah.
and so therefore, you know, could that be seen as a negative? Perhaps. I'd prefer to turn it into a positive and look at it as an opportunity for us, our agencies together, to grow together,
Yeah.
and to be able to better serve the community.
Great.
And I mean, the national standard now is for any town under a certain population to always build public safety buildings and not individual police and fire stations. The only places you see that going on now are cities
Yeah.
that can, you know, that need it because of the size of their
Yeah.
departments in general. Beverly just built one, but Beverly has almost 100 police officers. So that's a different entity than what we're
Right.
talking about. So Ipswich is at a size where combining our building square footage actually saves the taxpayers money because of the shared spaces that we spoke about earlier. And, you know, we're turning this into, you know, the most environmentally friendly building the town's ever built. And you can't do that without making, you know, putting us in one envelope. You
Yeah.
know? So.
Great.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things that people have been very pleased about is the accessibility of both buildings. But I do want to take a moment here because I think for the vast majority of taxpayers, they may have never stepped foot in either building, right? Fortunately or unfortunately. So beyond sort of emergency services, what sorts of things would the public come to this building for? I'll let you start.
Well, as far as the fire department
Yeah.
goes, right off the bat, I guess directions come
Yeah.
to mind, right?
Right,
And, you know, they
right.
come to both
Yep.
of our facilities for directions. Currently, if they knock on the door at our place for directions and we're out on a call, they
Sure.
don't get anywhere.
Yeah.
You know? But you know, as it relates to the fire department, we've had people pull in because they're having a medical emergency.
Oh, wow.
And so we want to make sure, you know, this, again, if they
Yeah.
pulled into the fire department today and we were out on a call and they're banging on the door because they have a medical emergency,
Sure.
there's nobody there to even answer their call.
Okay.
But, you know, burn permits,
Yeah.
regular fire permits,
Yeah.
coming to see fire prevention, coming with a technical question about perhaps a development that they're looking to propose in town.
Okay.
So those are things that
Car seat
typically.
fittings.
Oh, car seats
Car
are a
seat
big thing.
fittings,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, we
More should
and we
do
do
it.
a lot of them. Yeah.
Okay. And what about the police department? What do people show up here
So
for?
we have everything from, as Chief Parisi mentioned, just simply asking directions. Most of the time, it's for Crane Beach.
Yeah.
Or Town Hall, to be honest. So everything from those calls to requests just to speak to an officer about how to handle an issue that they may or may not be having that isn't necessarily a crime, but they're having an issue somewhere, so they want to speak with an officer. Currently, they come into the station for that. They come in for firearms permitting. They come in for peddlers permitting. So if they want to go door to door to sell, they have to come to the station. If you're looking,
Take note, Girl Scouts.
Yep. Yes. If you're looking to just do anything that has permitting involved in it, you usually start at the police station in one way, shape, or form. So coming there, we have probably dozens of people a day.
Sure,
You know,
sure.
And it's service them that
Yeah.
way.
And then there's always the
And then
drug
there's-
drop-off, right? The
Yep, there's the
prescription drug drop-off. and
prescription drug drop-off box that's in the lobby. A lot of committees still come in for their committee packets, even
Yeah.
though like they still like the paper ones as opposed to electronic
There you
ones. So people will come in for harbor master questions. People will come in for shellfish questions. People come in for emergency management questions about storm stuff, and we have packets that we can give out. We also do the seats, child-proof seats.
Yep.
They're also done at my station. We each have staff that's trained in that. So, I mean, anything you could think of,
Great, great.
And sometimes they come in and ask why the power's out.
I-
Certain parts
you
of
know
the
what?
state,
I can see that.
because we have a generator, so our powers are always on.
Yeah. So the takeaway here is if you haven't had the opportunity to either go into the fire or the police station yet, you're missing out because there's lots of services there.
And at some point,
outside
you
of
most likely
emergency.
will have to come in.
Sooner or later,
you know,
we all end up
for
there.
something.
Great, thank you both. So I want to look at the new building from a different perspective. We talked a lot about what it gives to the community. What does it do for our firefighters and our police officers?
So, you know, as I had mentioned at the start of this, the police station was never built to be a police station. So the layout is not efficient for operational needs of my officers while they're at the station. There are stairs going into the holding cells when we bring in detainees, which is a liability and a hazard, both to the officer and to the individual. You know, when you bring someone in and process them, you know, there's no area for evidence, there's no area for fingerprinting. These are all sort of blocked off and mismatched. So the new design actually internally flows naturally. Everything from when the officer comes in to go to a shift, the locker rooms are right there, the break room for food is right there, all on the same level. Their roll call room is right there, so they can do everything on the main floor and then go out to their cruisers and then go on patrol. Anytime you bring in somebody for processing, it's all on the ground level and it's all right there. There are no stairs involved, which cannot be stressed enough when it comes to handling people for law enforcement safety as well as the individual safety. On the main floor, right upstairs would be most of our public service issues. You know,
Okay.
everything from traffic complaints, harbors, the dispatch center's right there to handle most calls. So everything will be there on the main floor. So it's laid out for 21st century operations.
Nice.
If you need to come in for a quiet discussion with an officer, there's a soft interview room right off the main lobby, so they don't have to come into the police station and the security areas. They can come in, speak with an officer privately,
Yep.
and then go back out and be have their services, whatever they need dealt with. Upstairs will be the administrations, and if you need to get to the second floor, there will be an elevator
Imagine that.
for accessibility, which, again, not to go back to the old building, but we currently have no accessibility
Yeah.
when it comes to things like that. So that's another huge step forward. And it just makes for an easier operations inside. Everything will flow naturally for the way we operate. And, you know, the heating and cooling system is going to be, as I mentioned, state-of-the-art, environmentally friendly, and we currently have neither of those.
Okay. And what about for the firefighters?
Janice, I think for the firefighters, the most important thing is their health and safety.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so firefighters live in the firehouse 24 hours a day at a minimum. You know, sometimes it's
Yeah.
36, 48 hours
Yeah,
at a time.
people forget that.
Yeah, so it's our house. You know, it's our second home, if you will. It's where we live. And currently, when we come back from a response, from an incident, from a fire, we have really, there's very little of, if any, separation between what would be considered to be the dirty area or the contaminants that we bring back after any sort of incident and the living quarters. So right now, we come back from an incident and we shed our personal protective equipment, our gear, and it goes into an extractor, but then we have to go upstairs into the living area, and that's where we take off our clothes, that's where we shower. There's only one shower in the entire building, so, you know,
And how many folks are sharing that?
well, I
On
mean,
a shift, on a given shift?
4 typically,
Yeah.
but you know, after a fire, there could be, you know, 16
Right.
folks that need, you know, of our members that need to take a shower. And we certainly don't want them going home and taking a shower there,
course.
because we don't want them getting in their car with those contaminants, going home, exposing their family to all that contaminant, you know. So right now, it's waiting for the shower to become available. It's cross-contaminating into the clean area or the cold, what they, you know, the modern term is hot, warm, and cold zones.
Okay.
And you break the building up into those three zones. And the living quarters is the cold zone, meaning it's clean. But right now we don't have that. It's cross-contaminated, and that's not good. It's not healthy
Right.
for our firefighters to be dealing with that. Aside from that, just the space itself, relative to being able to access the equipment on the apparatus, is so cramped that, if we want to take a saw out and start the saw and check the saw, it's not only is it a hassle to get it out, but once you get it out, now you have it on the floor and you're starting it, and if it's 15 degrees out and you pop the door that much, so that you get a little fresh air, you're still filling the entire bay
Right.
with exhaust.
Right, right.
The new facility will have a system that literally changes the air on the apparatus bay on a regular basis. It
Okay.
will be monitored for carbon monoxide. It will exhaust and bring in fresh air, constantly. So we can check all our equipment. And therefore, again, not contaminate the cold zone or the clean area with those, carcinogens, which, firefighters have a much higher rate of cancers than the average person, and they're finding now that it's because of all of this cross-contamination, that we're bringing back on ourselves, So those are some of the things, and then. For the firefighters themselves, Janice, again, because it's our home, I think that the saying that space befits behavior, or informs
Okay, yep.
behavior, I think that when you work in a place that has the kind of cramped, dark, dingy areas that we work in currently, I think it begins to affect you after a while. I think your environment, the environment that you spend time in, has something to do with your own mental well-being.
Especially in those 24-hour cycles.
Yeah, right. So being able to be in a clean, modern, more spacious facility, I think is going to be better. Not only physically for the firefighters, but even mentally for them and for us.
Right.
I think it's really really important for us to keep that in mind.
Excellent. There's one thing that neither of you mentioned that I think from a public perspective and from an officer and firefighter perspective is really key, and that's the whole secure lobby, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And so would you either one of you like to talk a little bit about what that is and what that offers to the community and our employees?
So, so as I mentioned earlier, if someone comes in simply to talk to a police officer,
Yeah.
right now we either have to do it in this wide open lobby where anybody can walk in and hear the conversation, or we have to bring them into the locked facility or the secured part of the police station and then walk them to a different section of the station. And so for some people who simply just want to come in to have a personal discussion about a private issue, they may feel that, like, why do I have to go inside to the station? Why
Yeah.
am I being brought behind these locked doors? So providing that secured lobby that we will have, but with an interview room off that main lobby, will be very beneficial to the community as we serve them. But it's also protection for all of my staff.
Yeah.
Right now our lobby does not meet national standards for safety for the staff inside. The walls are not designed appropriately. We have, bullet-resistant glass in front of the dispatch, but that's it.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, in these times, we need to make sure that the entire lobby is sealed. If someone comes in and they're in distress, they can go right into a safe room. Through our dispatchers there to let them in and to secure it from anybody else that may be coming after them or what have you. So I think that's important.
Great, thank you. So Chief, you alluded to this in our last question when we talked a little bit about the ambulance, but talk to me a little bit about the design and the interior of this building and how it is that we are both meeting the current needs of the team while leaving enough versatility for future and maybe even unanticipated needs. How did we manage that with the architects?
Well, and Chief Nickus talked a little bit about the flow and the design, like the police station has never been, it wasn't designed as a police station, and certainly the existing firehouse was, but it was designed for horses, right?
Yeah.
This facility will be designed as a modern 21st century emergency services facility. So from a fire perspective, again, we're talking about national standards. It's important for us to measure how we deliver services to the community by benchmarking it against national standards. And one of those national standards is the National Fire Protection Agency or Association Standard 1710, which talks in terms of how quick we receive a call, how quick it takes us to turn out from the time we understand a call has been received to the time we're on the apparatus, and then which is called turnout time,
Yeah.
and then the time that it takes for us to get from the station to the call, response time.
Yeah.
So we talked earlier about us wanting to meet the national standards of 4 minutes, a 4-minute response time,
Yeah.
right? Well, backing that up, before we even get on the truck, or there's this 80-second turnout time.
Okay.
So in order for us to meet the national standard, from the time we understand there's a call until the time we're on the truck ready to roll out, the national standard is 80 seconds.
Wow.
What a modern facility does is it's designed so that no matter where we are, we can get to the apparatus, get our equipment on, and get out the door under 80 seconds. So if we're on the second floor, we've got immediate access to the apparatus floor by virtue of stairwells and poles, and they're
Yay, there's gonna be a
designed.
pole.
Yeah.
There will be 2 poles. Yeah. But they're designed so that we can immediately
Yeah.
access that area.
Yeah.
If we're in the fitness room is immediately adjacent to the apparatus room. If we're getting medical supplies, if we're training, which is another aspect that we really didn't talk about this building, but we actually have a training facility kind of integrated or built into the facility. If we're there, we can immediately get to the apparatus. Even if we're in the community room, which is, down
Right.
kind of on the police side, it's a straight shot to get to the apparatus. So if we're training, we can get to the apparatus quickly. So the flow of how that
Yeah.
works is all part of the design. The upstairs is centered around a core of what we call the day room and the kitchen room. And again, this is our house. This
Yeah,
is where
yeah.
this is where we rest, we train, we break bread together.
Yeah.
And that's all occurring up on that second floor. But it's kind of around the core of where the kitchen and the day room is. So the flow around that area is such that we can immediately access the apparatus. So that's all important.
Yeah.
And then we can also access the apparatus quickly from the bunk rooms. And one of the things that we currently have is a wide open squad bay for the bunk rooms. And this new facility is individual bunk rooms, or at least a maximum right now of 2 per
Okay.
bunk room. There's 6 bunk rooms. Right now we're planning on probably 2 beds per. We might consider bunk beds, but right now probably 2 beds per. So that's important for a couple of reasons. One is that if there's any gender issues,
Yeah.
then right now in a squad bay we really don't have any privacy.
Yep.
Secondly, during what we just came through, a global pandemic, when we have to live together, the firefighters still had to maintain some kind of social distancing from each
Sure.
other, even in the firehouse, because we wanted to make sure we didn't have a contamination of entire shift all at once. So to the extent that they can, they have to social distance. During that time, when they were in a bunk room, it was difficult. Now that when they were in a squad bay, now with these bunk rooms, it'll be
Yeah.
easier to do so.
Yeah. That's remarkable. 80 seconds to from go to get dressed to in the car?
Yes.
Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. What
So-
about the police?
So from the police side, the building's being designed for us to grow and to shift services if needed, because 40 years from now, things may be different. So we have numerous office spaces currently in the new design that can be shifted, molded, realigned to provide a new service or combine a service if that's the way things go down the line. So right now we have none of that capability. We have basically 3 offices
Okay.
that are pretty standard, that are stuck in that mold.
Yeah.
And we have no
Hard
room
walls.
for no room for expansion. The new facility has multiple office spaces that share spaces, so multiple jobs within the public safety can be combined in one office space, because they use, like, Shellfish and Harbors can be next to each other because they deal with the same things. They can be changed, they can be, in the future, if we go a different route, we can always spread things out. So the growth potential and the ability to change with what's needed from the public
Yeah.
in the future, this new building will give us that. We currently do not have that.
Great.
And there's been no way to do it in the current facilities.
Great. So planning has been paramount to make sure that the investment that we're making now is something that serves us well into the future.
Sure, yeah, and
Great.
the materials to build this, we're talking materials that last 100 to 200 years. Brick and zinc and metal panels. That's why it was chosen, for the wear and tear that these buildings are gonna go through.
Yeah.
Constantly, remember, they're open 24/7.
Yep.
365 days, every storm imaginable. We cannot go down.
Right.
We are not allowed to go down. So, the materials that we chose are both economical and durable for our facilities for the next, for decades into the future.
Yep.
Yeah, we were really specific about that. We had to stay away from things like, VCT tile and vinyl siding and even
Yeah.
hardy board. Those were things that we said that it's going to wear out in 10 to 15 years. We wanted a building, we wanted to make sure that what we constructed was going to be here for decades. And I think that where we've ended up is exactly there.
Where we wanted.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So to kind of wrap it all up, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is really important for the public and the taxpayers to know about this project?
I think it's important for those that are new to town.
Yeah.
This discussion's been going on for 70 plus years.
Yeah.
They've been looking at public safety and police and fire stations since, 1950s was the first time it came on the radar, and it's come up numerous times over the last, however many years it's been. Now is the time to build this. The taxpayers voted for it, understood our needs, understood their needs, and support this project. And I think it's important for those that aren't aware of that to understand that.
That's helpful. Thank you. And Chief?
Yeah, and I'm afraid, Janice, that if this doesn't happen now, I don't know when it'll happen.
Yeah.
I'd be terrifically afraid that if it didn't happen now, it's not going to happen at all. And it's not for any other reason other than, as the chief said, it's been talked about for so long.
Right.
But outside of that, I think that going forward, we have, the chief and I, as well as members of the firefighters union, the police union, we have been intimately involved in the conversation from the beginning on the design of this building. We have had a lot of spirited discussion about how the building was going to be designed.
Yeah.
And and kudos to the civilian members of the committee who have bared with us through all of that and have always really deferred, and I give them a lot of credit for deferring to us as the subject matter experts.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, even when there was a sentiment to go in one direction, they always said, but chiefs, if you have to have it this way, then that's the way it will be. And, you know, we've been lockstep with the members of both of our organizations to make sure that the building that is currently proposed is the building that's going to work for us and for the community. This will serve the town of Ipswich for decades to come, and we will be proud to work out of it.
That's really nice. It's really nice. And yes, aren't we fortunate to have so many spirited individuals in our community? Passionate about the town that we live in.
For sure.
Well, thank you both. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your service to the community.
Thank you, James.
You make it a better place to live.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thanks,
Oh,
yeah.
my pleasure.
It's our privilege. Thank you.
Thank you for watching.